Hey everybody, it's Kevin. We've all been discussing on the email chain we've got going about doing a walk about, talking about our Jeeps and what we've done to them, etc., etc. And so I thought I'd give it a try. So we'll see how it turns out. I don't know. So here we go. Obviously, this is my shop where I work, my garage on my house, the workbench, drill press, air compressor, nice fan when it's hot out, the radio, the most important tool in the shop. Got to have tunes, welder, and some tools. And then, of course, the Jeep, which is a 99 Wrangler Sahara that I've had for about 15 years, probably. And I've done a bunch of stuff to it, so let's take a look. We'll start in the front. You might notice that the bumper isn't too common because it's custom. I made it myself. I cut the steering box free, moved it up above the frame, leveled it out, got my steering up nice and high, custom made all that. Made this front end here out of some sheet steel. And dropped a pan in the bottom. The point of it all was to try to get the winch as low as possible to give me the most clearance in the radiator, for movement of air. And the coolers that I have in here, I wanted them to get some good air. Threw a couple tabs on there for good measure to hook shackles into for recovery. And it turned out pretty sweet. Got a nice shallow approach angle. When you look across the tires, you can see that there isn't much sticking out in front of the Jeep. It's a pretty good angle. I don't know what that is. 70 or 80 degrees or something. It's pretty steep, pretty cool. Of course, I put the Dana 60 in it, 1 ton out of a 99 to 04 era F-250. Flashlight there. I don't know if that's helping. Seems like it's not really doing much, but we'll just shut that off. I custom build all the steering links, made them myself. Tried to keep everything level. As you can see, I've got it all drag link and the track bar are parallel to each other. I don't have any bump steer. I don't have any steering stabilizer on here, as you might notice. And I drive this Jeep down the highway at 70, 80 miles an hour with really no bump steer to speak of, so it's pretty awesome. Turned out really cool. Made a custom sway bar mounts out there. The truss is an Artec truss, so I didn't make that, of course. And I think the diff covers are rough stuff, I think. Yeah, I think so. Anyway, so I modified the sway bar. Your typical TJ sway bar is on the top, somewhere back in this location. But of course, since I relocated the steering box, that wasn't going to work. So I dropped it below and shortened it because the Dana 60 is stretched out a bunch. I cut the coil buckets off the TJ ones and made these myself. And the shock mount, integrated those in. The bracketry there, of course, I made that too. It's all just stuff that I made myself to put this together. Well, the little tab on the top of the inner C there to run the Ford brake line. And then I hard pipe the brake lines down the top of the axle. That way I wouldn't have, there you go. That way I wouldn't have to worry about whether my brake hoses were long enough. The brake lines actually hard pipe in and follow the upper third link back to the joint and comes up back through here. So it just turns the corner there and just pivots as the suspension cycles. So I don't have to worry about the brake lines being too short when this thing drops out with the long arms. So that turned out pretty cool. I had to custom make the steering shaft in there. It needed an extra knuckle in it to get around the frame and all the stuff in there. And so I stole some parts out of a Jeep Liberty, actually. Which, what is that, a KJ? Out of a Jeep KJ, I guess. And threw an extra knuckle in there, which is kind of hard to see because there's a bunch of stuff in the way. But it's got an extra knuckle in it that isn't in the standard vehicle. You get the idea. So that turned out pretty cool. Worked out. I had to trim it a little bit after I did the LS swap, but it was all but where I needed it, which was kind of neat. You can see I try to save money where I can and cut corners where I can, but I don't like to make cheap garbage or nothing. But you can see my fenders are just homemade. That's the factory flare. I just cut the front blinker off here, and this area was all chopped all that away. Put some marker lights in here to keep it legal. Cut some holes in the fender or in the grill to put the JK blinkers in. And got rid of that, and it turned out pretty sweet, and it was free. I mean, basically, you just chopped the fenders. Did the same in the back. Just trimmed them off and, spent the money on other stuff. Along those lines, you can see I got some coolers in here, some auxiliary coolers that I mounted in the grill. They came out of the salvage yard also. Got them out of a Chevy Suburban. This one's capped off. I'm working on that currently. That will be for power steering. This one is the transmission. It's hooked up. And I'll be hooking that one up soon. I'm working on that, raising my power steering reservoir right now so I can utilize that. And that project is going right in here. I got this can out of a Chevy Express van, and I mounted it up high. The other steering pump is down here, way down there. Really way too low, so it doesn't work because it's lower than the cooler. So of course air would get trapped in the system and never find its way out. So I couldn't do that. So I'm working on that right now. I got the new pump here. That's a remote reservoir style. I'll run a hose down to it. It's the same bracket, same pump basically. I had this extra accessory bracket laying around, so I'm just going to swap the whole. I just got it all ready, and I'm going to swap the whole thing in. Just take the alternator off here, put the whole bracket in, put it back together. And I'm working on this Durango box. Going to drill and tap it for some hydro assist right here. Rip it all apart. I got a rebuild kit that came today, and I'll put all that in, and then I'll have hydro assist and an oil auxiliary cooler for my power steering, which we all know when you're off-road really takes some abuse. I guess the obvious big one in here is, let me put this hood up a little bit higher. There we go. Is the LS that I just installed very recently. It's a 6-liter out of a Chevrolet Silverado 2500 HD. And I've had it in. I got about 300 miles on it now. And I got it all wired in. I put the computer in the cab under the kind of where the steering wheel is there. Found some space for it there. Fit in real nice. And I think it fits pretty well. Wired it in. I think I did a good job on all the wiring. I tightened it up real nice and neat. And it's pretty awesome. I just made this cold air intake for it recently. This box is out of a Cadillac with the 32 valve North Star V8 in it. And I made all the bracketry and so forth that you see here to mount that. And got that in there. And cut a hole in the fender. Made this box here with some nice tapered section at the bottom to make sure no water would get up into the intake, of course. And I already had a hole in the fender from an onboard York air compressor that I removed when I put the LS in. So I just repurposed that big hole in the fender and made this custom box with some louvers in there to keep debris out and whatnot. It's got lots of drain holes in it to keep, for the water to run out when it does splash up in there. But it's turned out pretty well. Got a nice enclosed air filter instead of an open filter, which a lot of guys are running. I had one at 1.2 and it was all right, but I think I'm going to like this better. Just because I don't have to worry about it getting dirty so quickly. So there's that, and then go around to where the fun happens. Let me put this hood back down so I don't scratch it on the garage door opener, because I did that once and already had to fix the paint on the hood because I'm a dummy. So, come around here. Got these little mirrors on there that are just mirrors from a truck stop. That convex mirrors, and so I can pop those out of the door, pop the door off, and then this part will actually go right in the hinge. I can just use them for both purposes, which is pretty fun. And it was cheap, so that was a cool mod, I think. Get in the truck, take a look around. Just a standard TJ. I got all the gauges working with the LS, so that was pretty cool. I got a transmission temperature gauge down here. A couple of switches for the ARBs. That little thing there is a magnet for holding my phone. And then, of course, I got the Cherokee shifter bezel in there to convert this. Used to be had an AX15 when I bought it. It was a manual, but I converted it over. And then you see, of course, the shifters here for I got a Dana 300 in this twin stick custom built flip kit thing that it's quite a lot of parts and pieces it took to make that happen. These shifters are out of a Plymouth Sundance, actually. It's the automatic transmission floor shifter from a Plymouth. I grabbed a pair of those and made them fit in the original, slot, which I that's what my goal was. I just wanted it to look like it was supposed to be there, I didn't want it to look like an afterthought. And so I thought that turned out pretty well. Other than that, there's Truman's chair for when he's co-piloting the operation. Let's get this seat. And then I built this box in the back to hold all my stuff and keep it all from beating me to death if I would happen to roll this Jeep down the mountain. The one thing about Jeeps, as we all know, they don't have nearly enough cup holders in them. So I incorporated some extra cup holders, which are just probably the greatest mod in the whole wide world, believe it or not. Love them. And I got this little cool recoil for my CB radio. Got that at a truck stop. That's pretty sweet. In case you don't have one, they're pretty cool. You see the tank in the back there. That's my CO2 20-pound tank that I use for operating the lockers, of course. One recent mod I just did actually lately was this fire extinguisher. I've had it rolling around here in the back for the longest time, and just finally decided I needed it somewhere where I could get to it in a hurry. I got my son riding with me, sometimes my daughter. God forbid this damn thing would be on fire or whatever. I just need to be able to put it out in a hurry. And the one that I used to have hanging back here on the roll bar just wasn't doing it for me because I couldn't get to it in a hurry if I needed to. This one I can reach from everywhere. Back of the Jeep, pull the seat forward over here. I can get to it, reach it from the driver's seat, reach it from outside of the Jeep from the driver's side. It's, safety is a big part of having fun. You got to be safe, or otherwise it's no fun. And then I got these little brackets here that you can put a padlock in when you need to lock the vehicle to keep, when I have the top off in the winter or summer, I mean. And I go to, run into Lowe's or something like that or wherever. I don't want people rifling through my stuff. Unfortunately, the damn thing is locked. So I'm going to have to go grab the key. So let's do that. And we'll take a look inside. I got the high lift jack in here, of course. Standard Jeep tool that, for when you got to jack up a Jeep that the little scissor jack that comes with them just isn't quite man enough to do anymore. There's the lock. Pop the latches. And then that opens up with a nice pair of hydraulic rams to hold it open. Can't get really back far enough with this camera to get a good look. But you can see I've got plenty of storage in here. There's a full gallon of washer fluid. This is my recovery bag. All my stuff is in here, which I take out before I get out there. But anyway, you can see I've got a lot of room in here to keep a lot of stuff. Every kind of fluid, extra hubs, funnels and hose and clamps and gloves and fluids. I guess I said that. Cleaners, starting fluid, bungee cords, you name it. Hand cleaner, it's all in here. Whatever you need to get out on the trail, have a good time, but get home safely. So that turned out pretty sweet. And we'll latch that down. And we'll go take a look in the back. And that. While we're looking on the way there, you can see that I have some metal cloak corners. Anyone that's familiar with metal cloak will recognize these little buttons here where their fenders attach. These, of course, are just the Jeep flares that I trimmed to fit on the cheap. Got some Ford F-250 shock towers in there and some custom-made perch mounts. Repurposed the old TJ perch and made these to fit it for the stretch. I stretched the rear out. I'm at about 101 inches total right now. 101 and a half, somewhere in there. Roughly. So doing that, of course, I lost the TJ filler bezel, which would have been right in this neighborhood somewhere. So I just went ahead and converted it to a YJ. Went out to the junkyard and got a YJ filler bezel and cap and all that. Got a couple of adapter pipes back here. Got a GenRight stretched fuel tank back there to give some room for that big Sterling 10.5-inch rear axle. That is a quite a beast. It's pretty awesome. I think it's rated at something like 10,600 pounds or something ridiculous like that. I could basically haul the entire Jeep and the truck I haul the Jeep to the park with this axle. So that's pretty cool. Here's the GenRight crawler tank. I forget what bumper this is. It's just basically not much of a bumper. Just a couple of D-rings and some bolts. I wanted to keep it slim and sleek. Nothing back here to bash when I come down off the boulders. Don't have any flush mount taillights yet, but I have been thinking about maybe doing that someday. Got a little CB antenna there that I kind of chopped and modified. I bought that actually, but it mounts the CB antenna over here somewhere, and so I chopped it off and re-welded it down at the bottom, because otherwise the garage door would bang against the antenna and I couldn't open the door. So that was lame. So I just lowered it a little bit. Turned out pretty cool. And here with my toolbox in the back, you can see we get the tailgate open. And here's the rest of the trail gear. First aid kit, some bag of rags, complete toolbox with every other kind of tool I can think of in there. Some toilet paper, of course, very important. Hand towels and spotlight, extra CB, handheld CB radio, and some bags that I have just to keep all my onboard air system. That's all my air stuff. I got one for electrical. Keep my multimeter in there, fuses, tape, wire, butt splices, things like that in case you got to do something out on the trail. And a bag of shackles. You guys get the idea. And all that bagged up. So what I really like about what I tried to design here was this is right against the tailgate. And so when the tailgate is shut in the summer, you can just lock the tailgate and you cannot open that back end. The back is closed off at that point, so you can't get to the toolbox, which is really the most expensive thing in the back of the Jeep, that box of tools. Well, I wouldn't want that to come up missing. So I made it so that it would be lockable. So when the top's off, I can lock that lid on the inside with a padlock, lock the tailgate, and my trail stuff can just be in the Jeep all year round. I don't have to take it in and out all the time. I don't have to worry when the top is on. So that's pretty cool. I think that turned out all right. Quick look underneath. You'll see I have Clayton long arms. That and their bracketry. I've got a Barnes 2-inch drop skid plate that I had to notch for the 4L80 that came as part of my LS swap, because it is a huge mother. I custom made these skids to skid in the oil pan and the transmission, so nothing would take a hit off road. In the back here, I've got a 4-link bridge on the Sterling 10.5 with the 4 links mounted on top. Of course, pretty standard stuff there. This is original maybe. I welded all these plates on the bottom of the diff when I was building it. When I was welding the truss on, I figured, well, I'm already heating it up anyway. I might as well make a permanent skid here to make this clear the rocks a little better. And so I think that turned out pretty cool. It's nice. Gives my huge Sterling 10.5 a nice smooth bottom. So that turned out sweet. And if we come around here, you can see the Dana 300 sitting above the skid plate. It is clocked basically flat. Pretty much at 0 degrees. I forget what degree it's at, but it isn't a lot. And I have it coupled to the 4L80 and with a wet coupling. It's not a dry center coupling there. That's how it is from GM. So in order to make sure I didn't have any contamination of anything strange, I went ahead and converted the Dana 300 to ATF. And I made this little sight glass tube so I could keep an eye on the fluid. And then here you can kind of see some of the parts of the Dana 300 flip kit that I built myself to flip it over and make it work in a TJ. And it works pretty well. Let's go around here to the front. There's the transmission skid. There is the Dana 60, which I am a big fan of. And here you can see the cable shifter that I made to get the Dana 300 to shift properly from my Plymouth Sundance shifters up above. Not a real good look, but you get the idea. There's my 4L80 and the bottom of the LS, which hangs down a long way. It is also a very large, big son of a gun. But I raised it up as high as I could get it without crashing into the Jeep itself, and it's not too bad. Not too bad. When you look from the side, it's not terrible. I think it'll work out real nice. I haven't had it out yet because of the coronavirus and so forth. So we'll have to save the first trip out to the park for when all that goes away. Otherwise, I guess I'm out here on the corners. I forgot about the corners. I got some Pitbull Rocker 37s and some Trailworthy Fab 12-bolt military bead locks, double bead locks, to get the LS power to the ground and get me over the obstacles. So there it is in a nutshell. 99 one-ton TJ with some some good mods, some cheap mods like this. These are cheap, almost free, just my time. And some slightly more expensive mods like, an LS and some 1-tons and so forth. But all in all, I think it turned out pretty cool. I like it a lot. Oops, turn that off. And I'm really looking forward to getting it out when all this virus stuff gets over with so we can get back together and have some fun. So I hope this turns out cool, and I look forward to seeing everybody else's videos. Check you later.